Lions GM Brad Holmes hears the buzz. He likes the buzz, and he says Lions fans deserve to feel it. He spent an hour talking with Peter Schrager less than 2 weeks before training camp begins. The Lions GM looked back at the deal he made when he first got this job, sending Matthew Stafford out to Los Angeles and bringing Jared Goff to Detroit.
Well, I remember when we were hammering out the details of the trade. Obviously, Stafford was getting traded to the Rams, but I never forget Les asked me, he was like, do you want Jared in this trade? And I was like, hell yeah. Like, absolutely. Like, it wasn't like, just give me any quarterback. No, I was like, no, I want Jared in this trade.
Holmes went into great detail about just how ugly 2021 was for Goff and the Lions, but not because of the quarterback's play. He defended him, saying they had nobody for him to throw to in that first year. They had a banged-up O-line, and they really stripped the roster down to nothing.
He goes through that 21 season, and he does not complain. He does not about this and that and that. He just goes through it, and it starts coming together late in the season. And then, he has a year that he had last year, and now it's like, oh, Jared Goff's good. And I'm like, well, he's actually always been good. He's a Detroit Lion. Like, he's embodied what the city's about, and I think the toughness and everything that he's endured, and I think everybody just has a lot more appreciation about him. And again, I think we'll be even better offensively this year coming up, and I'm just excited about it.
Football season just a few.
Did the Detroit Lions get the trade right? What do you believe? Do you still believe that Jared Goff was a bridge quarterback? Do you still believe that Hendon Hooker should have been starting the last year or two, which I know many of you have come onto this channel and tell us that that's how you felt? I will tell you that for me, this trade couldn't have gone any better. I think by now, the Detroit Lions are the clear winners in this trade. Absolutely, the Rams got one great year, winning a Super Bowl, and it kind of begs the question, as Brad is exiting the Rams and he's going to Detroit, does he get asked, by Les Snead and Sean McVay, hey, you helped us build this great roster. We just need one more piece that's ready to go right now. Would you be willing to trade Matthew Stafford as he's walking out the door? And I'm sure that at some point, Brad probably thought about it too, that what can I do to immediately inject some possibility and some hope into this team? And that was by doing what they did with Jared Goff and bringing in a couple of draft picks to help this Detroit Lions team get over the hump quickly and start the resurgence, right? Start the rebuild of what this team was going to end up being. And now here we are entering our fifth season, right? 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. The Detroit Lions are headed into their fifth season with Jared Goff. They've given him a really good contract. It was one of the largest contracts handed out just a season ago. It is not that anymore. The likes of Brock Purdy getting paid $53 million a year now makes Jared Goff's deal kind of look puny when you think about it, especially Mr. Irrelevant getting paid, Jared Goff having been to a Super Bowl, not making as much as Mr. Irrelevant is. So again, my question to everybody in the comments, what do you believe about this trade? Well, I'm going to walk you through a few things, and that's exactly why I'm doing this video today, because I want to make sure that we hit the season off right and that we do Mr. Jared Goff justice this year by explaining what happened. So let me walk you through why the Detroit Lions won this trade. In 2021, the Detroit Lions traded Matthew Stafford to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for Jared Goff, a 2021 third-round pick, a first-round pick in 2022, and then in 2023. The trade was seen as very significant for both teams. You have a team that is on the cusp, and then you have a team that is totally having to rebuild everything. I mean, down to the mud, as I like to say it. It wasn't just a quarterback away. It was a quarterback and 53 football players away, or 52 football players away. The trade was by many, thinking that the Rams obviously won this because Jared Goff was nothing more than a bridge quarterback. Sean McVay threw him in the trash, and the media ran with it, and they poured gasoline on what was a small ember at one point burning about Jared Goff going to Detroit, and it just blew up. And every Lions fan was thinking, and cursing Brad Holmes at the same time, like, why would you do this? Why would you trade Matthew Stafford away and bring in this bum, this guy that doesn't have an arm, right? This guy that can't win anything. He was just kicked out of LA that doesn't even have a fan base. And you're bringing him to Detroit? Must be a bridge quarterback. Cheap option, but you didn't think that either because of how much he was making at that point. So obviously, the contractual implications that followed this, the Lions assuming Jared Goff's 4-year, $106.6 million contract, and the Rams only having to take on 2 years, $43 million for Matthew Stafford. Big difference here. You're talking an average of about $27 million a year versus $21.5 million a year. Two polar opposites as far as quarterbacks and success levels. I would say that Jared Goff had the better success in the league in the short time that he was in it than Matthew Stafford did at that time. But statistically, Matthew Stafford he was doing just about everything he could to win football games, just couldn't win football games. What were the real implications, though? What came of this trade? How did the Lions really finish, far ahead? And today, the outcome of this trade is exactly why this team is doing the things that it is doing. Well, the Detroit Lions used the draft picks that were acquired in the trade to add very young players through the draft, obviously, but Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams were all added because of that trade. The Rams, they were led to a Super Bowl win. Matthew Stafford did exactly what he was asked to do and what the Rams were hoping he would do, which is come into a team that was fairly loaded, that was, built by Brad Holmes. He had a hand in all of that. Just felt that maybe they needed a different view, from behind center. I think that Jared Goff could have won that Super Bowl too, the way that team was built. But the relationship between Sean McVay and Jared Goff was gone. It just, McVay said too much, couldn't wind it back, and it is what it is. Look, Stafford provided that upgrade at that time that the Rams needed. And it's not to say that Jared Goff wasn't a good quarterback. He was just in a bad situation because his head coach doubted him. And whenever that happens, one, it can ruin careers and ruin the psyche of football players, but you're never going to know what those guys could have been had they just had the right leader. And now we've seen what Jared Goff is with the right leadership. And that's not Ben Johnson. That's Dan Campbell. The Lions under new management, right, with Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, they rebuilt this roster. They rebuilt it around Jared Goff, for Jared Goff on the offense, and then they also did what they had to do so far on the defense, which is continuing to grow every year. Stafford's career, it benefited from the trade, obviously winning the Super Bowl, establishing himself as now a top tier and eventual Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm not sure that he would have received a golden jacket without that Super Bowl, but clearly he benefited. But so has Jared Goff. His career has been one of the best quarterback careers in a 2.5, 3 year, season, turnaround that I've ever seen. He goes from the bottom to the top. Statistically, Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, when that trade happened, both of those guys had almost identical stat numbers. But Jared Goff was not always at the top or near the top, but now he is. And it's not just stats that he's winning. He's winning a lot of football games too, obviously with the help of his team. Let's get into those stats. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about here. So obviously Matthew Stafford on the left, Jared Goff on the right here. Overall passing grade, this was last year, 74.7 for Matthew Stafford, 81.8 for Jared Goff, and that is an elite number. Anything over 80 is elite in this league. Big difference in passing yards, almost 1,000 more yards for Jared Goff last year, second in the NFL, out of 75 quarterbacks that touched the field last year. 37 passing TDs, ranked fourth in the NFL for Jared Goff, only 20 for Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff did throw 4 more interceptions, which 5 of them came in one game versus the Texans. So Jared Goff was honestly having one of the best seasons that he's ever had, even including interceptions until that one fateful day, against the Texans. But he was able to bounce back and win, which that, again, does not happen really ever. Quarterback rank, 14 for Jared Goff, according to PFF, and 22 for Matthew Stafford for fantasy points. Not that I give a rip about fantasy, because I don't. Past performances, when you're comparing, similar defenses, similar teams, Matthew Stafford to 220.6 yards per game. Jared Goff, 333.4. Absolutely crushing Matthew Stafford in what he's been able to do the last 5 seasons. 2024 grade, we kind of went over that. Passing grade for Jared Goff, 79.5 to Matthew Stafford, 72.4. Now, going back to 2021, this is when it all started. 601 attempts for Matthew Stafford, 41 passing TDs. Hell of a season for him. Clearly why he was able to win a Super Bowl. He was able to complete almost everything. 4,886 passing yards, 17 interceptions. So for a lot of people that, are giving Jared a lot of flack for 12 interceptions, Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl with 17. And those numbers that you're seeing right there, eerily similar to what Jared Goff did last year. Jared was just 4 touchdowns and about 130 yards away from doing the exact same thing that Matthew Stafford did in 2021 to win that Super Bowl. Jared's been putting up Super Bowl numbers. And if you don't think so, well, there's your proof. Now, Jared didn't have a good year, but you're going to hear from Brad Holmes here in just a moment as to why 2021 was not his fault. And if you think it is, I would implore you to go watch that season again and pay attention to the depth chart. But you'll hear from Brad here in just a moment as to why. I want to move into the next season, okay? What started to happen for Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, really, I mean, the seas began to part here. This is where Jared Goff really began to set himself apart. Stafford dealt with some injuries in 2022, only had 303 attempts for 10 passing TDs, but he did throw 8 interceptions. That's a TD to interception ratio that you never want to see for a quarterback. For Jared Goff, one of his best statistical seasons ever as a quarterback. And this is just 1 year into the new system, 1 year into a new team. And in really half of a season, it was about the last 8 games that Jared Goff just went bonkers. I mean, he went berserk with what he was able to do. And so did Amon-Ra St. Brown. 29 TDs to 7 interceptions is insane. That is elite as it is in the NFL. You can't ask for anything better than that. I won't bore you with all of the other little stats that are involved in here, but a couple I do want to point out. Average time to throw for Matthew Stafford, 2.59 seconds. Jared Goff, 2.69. Pressure to sack rate, well, not so great for Matthew Stafford. Took a ton of sacks, right? 27%. Jared Goff, 12th in the league. Pressure to sack rate, only 12.3%. That's a really good pressure to sack rate. Big time throws. I hear all the time that Jared Goff doesn't have a big time arm. Well, he had 18 big time throws to Matthew Stafford's 15. However, Stafford didn't play a full season either. I don't even think he played I don't think he completed 2/3 of a season in 2022. Let's move on to 2023. In 2023, Stafford was back to himself. He was playing a full season here. I mean, look at the numbers. Besides the fact that Matthew Stafford did not get above 4,000 yards for the second time in a very long career, it seems like he's always been over 4,000 yards. Eerily similar numbers again, 521 to 605 attempts, just under 4,000 passing yards for Stafford, 4,574 for Jared Goff. Again, that if you're looking at a stock ticker right now, that arrow is going straight up. Since Jared Goff landed in Detroit, it was dead nuts on the bottom, and that arrow is pointing straight up towards the top of the mountain. Jared has been improving every single season. Last year it was 29-7. This year, in 2023, it's 30-12, 4,574 yards, 605 attempts. Again, ranking in the top 2 for both those categories, top 4 for TDs and top 5 overall as a quarterback. When you compare total pass snaps, they're 73 more for Jared Goff, dropbacks, almost 80 more for Jared Goff, attempts, 80 more for Jared Goff than Matthew Stafford, passing yards, again, about 600 more than Matthew Stafford, touchdowns, 6 more, interceptions, only 1 more. I mean, again, Jared's putting the ball up a lot more, and he's doing a lot more with it, and he's not giving the ball away to the defense. Average time to throw, again, 2.57 for Jared Goff, was quicker than Matthew Stafford in 2023 at 2.59. Better year for pressure to sack rate for Matthew Stafford at 15.8%. Jared Goff, 13.2%. Big time throws. Matthew Stafford had a full season. He was able to complete 33 of them. Jared Goff with 20. But this is the other number that I want to pay attention to, which is turnover-worthy plays. Jared only had 17 turnover-worthy plays in 2023. Matthew Stafford had 12. Looking at some of the scramble numbers and rush snaps and things like that, I don't pay a ton of attention to this, but look at this number down here, 73 scramble yards for Matthew Stafford, 31 for Jared Goff, but Jared Goff only had to move 7 times. He's not asked, to really scramble outside of the pocket to do things with his feet. However, when the offensive line breaks down, that's what this number is for. And Jared is just not having to move a whole lot because the offensive line is taking good care of him. Let's move into last year. One of the best years ever for a quarterback, and definitely the best year for Jared Goff. Again, Matthew Stafford's just not able to hang with Jared Goff and what he's been able to do the last few seasons. He won his Super Bowl. He's definitely trailed off, and Jared Goff is moving right into his prime. 539 attempts last year for Jared Goff, 37 TDs, 12 interceptions. Again, 37 TDs to 12 interceptions. Matthew Stafford, just about the same attempts, only put up 20 and 8. Now, he didn't have any weapons, right? Puka Nacua gets hurt. Cooper Kupp gets hurt. You can take a look at, what Jared Goff had to go through in 2021. It still doesn't compare to what Matthew Stafford had available to him last season. Let's take a look at some of the other numbers. 604 to 508 pass attempts, so again, or pass snaps, so almost identical. Dropbacks, only 40 more for Jared Goff. Attempts, again, only 20 more for Jared Goff, but Jared Goff put up almost 900 more yards through the air. He put up 17 more TDs. Average time to throw, again, I mean, just almost dead nuts, even with these guys. 2.68 for Goff, 2.63 for Matthew Stafford. That is Jared Goff having a good release, quick release, understanding where he needs to go with the ball, reading defenses quickly, getting through his progressions, just like Matthew Stafford does. The only thing different, between these guys is Stafford's a little bit shorter, and some would say he has a lot better or stronger arm. And I think that it's subjective at best. Again, who won? Who won this trade? Was it the Detroit Lions or was it the LA Rams? I will tell you it was both. And that is only because the Rams were able to accomplish the feat of winning a Super Bowl. And I'm not going to say that Jared Goff couldn't have done the same thing that season. He very well could have. As long as you have the trust of your coach and you have some, players alongside of you that, can play football at a pretty good clip, you can do a lot of things. This team for the Detroit Lions is set up more so now than it ever has been ever that I can remember in all of the 4 decades that I've been paying attention to the Detroit Lions. A few things that I didn't go over, with some of Jared Goff's stats is, he has been ranked, in the plus 80 as far as PFF for overall grade in 2024 is 81.8, where he ranked 16th out of all, 75 quarterbacks. And he's been in that elite tier now for about 2.5 seasons. And I don't think it's gonna, get worse for him. I think that Jared Goff has developed the level of chemistry with his offense. As long as everybody stays healthy, this is where I expect Jared Goff to be. Even going up against some of the elite teams this year, I still expect for the Detroit Lions to take care of business. So again, I want to know in the comments below. You guys tell me who you believe won this trade. And now I want to hear from Brad Holmes and what he feels about this trade.
Jared Goff is scheduled to make $27.9 million in the last year of his contract next season. Lions GM Brad Holmes said the team holds exit interviews with every player, and that, of course, includes Goff, who could be signing a contract extension this offseason and could make him one of the highest-paid players in the NFL.
In terms of Jared, look, I've always had belief in Jared. You guys have always heard me that. I don't think, I don't know what more needs to be said from a leadership or performance standpoint or what more he needs to do in that regard. But in terms of the belief, as always, he got drafted in 16 and 17 was his first year as a full-time starter and he made the playoffs. The second year as a full-time starter, he went to a Super Bowl. I didn't understand why his career was defined after he went to a Super Bowl a second year as a full-time starter. And so then when he came to us, I always had belief. So him doing what he did this past year or even the year before, it's not a surprise to us. Just happy that what he's done and couldn't be more proud of everything he's achieved.
Well, I know for me, I couldn't be more proud either as a Detroit Lions fan for all of my life, born in 1980 and being a season ticket holder with my father for 27 years now. I got to tell you that this is the best I've ever seen it. And there's a lot of fans out there that just can't seem to get it out of their minds that maybe, just maybe, this team can win some football games and go the distance, and they could do it with the players that they have on this team. They don't need a second or a third top-tier defensive end, and they don't need another quarterback. What they need is to just stay healthy, and I think great things are going to come. Jared Goff definitely has done a lot for this team. And just like Brad Holmes said, and that was last year, just before he was about to sign his contract extension that nobody knew was coming. What else does he have to do statistically to prove that he belongs? And the answer is nothing. He's been at the top of the mountaintop with all of the stats that you could measure. The only thing that he hasn't done is won a Super Bowl. He's taken Detroit to win its first 2 back-to-back home playoff games for the first time in 60 years, 57. And then the next year, right back to the playoffs. We went to our first NFC championship game, and we won 2 NFC championships, NFC North championships, excuse me. So I don't know what else he has to do. Now, is he 100% responsible for that? No, he's not. But he's a very big part. The quarterback, in my opinion, plays a much bigger role than anybody else on this team. It starts and ends with Jared Goff. You've seen it. When teams lose their quarterback, you can cash in the season. It's extremely rare that a backup will come in and do anything or hold down the fort. It was Nick Foles that did it for the Eagles. But come on, that doesn't happen but once, every 50 years? And it hasn't happened again. Jared Goff is the man for the job. I'm extremely excited to see him in Detroit again this season, and looking forward to what's up next. So thank you guys for watching. Please do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe to Rockhound Detroit Lions. Come along for the ride, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.